Usually during the escape scenes in movies, they're told in such a way that leaves you impressed with the person who's escaped, that leaves you impressed with the hero, that emphasizes their skill, their strength, their cunning thinking that got them out of the situation. This story is told in the exact opposite way. It emphasizes the powerful intervention of God in the situation and the passivity of Peter. This is not Peter coordinating this grand escape. This isn't Peter picking the lock with the key he swallowed the night before, silently taking out the guards in hand-to-hand combat. This isn't Peter grabbing a map as he walks out so he can scale the gate to freedom and stay one step ahead of the enemy in a foot race through the city. No, it's not what we see. Peter literally sleepwalks to freedom. He escapes Herod's maximum security prison in a state of semi-consciousness, is what's going on here. Even the angel, look at how the angel's talking to him. It's as if Peter is a child. He's like, okay, Peter, get dressed. Now, Peter, put on your shirt. Peter, your socks. Put on your socks, Peter. It's time to go. Get up the chains. You see they're off. Let's go. We're moving out of here. And Peter's just trying to stick with it. Peter was a very deep sleeper, we know from this story. And I can relate to Peter because I am a very deep sleeper. I can only remember 2 times in recent history where I got out of bed at night and neither time turned out good at all. There was one time where an alarm went off in the house, and I get out of bed and I walk over to my alarm clock, and I'm just staring at it while this alarm is going off, thinking, I've never heard you make this sound before. How do I get you to stop making that sound so I can go lay back down? Meanwhile, my wife, Megan, she springs up, goes, takes care of the alarm, comes back to tell me, it's not your alarm clock making that sound. Go back to bed. And so I just go back over to bed and collapse in there. The other time, one of our kids was crying. Megan woke me up. We'll take turns on this sort of thing. Usually she's the lighter sleeper, so she'll get up with the kids often. On this occasion, she woke me up to go get the kid who was crying. So I got up and I'm walking. I get up. Megan has to, my sweet wife, Megan, the only way to get me up in my sleep is to yell at me. So she knows this, and so I spring to life because she's woken me up, and I just start moving toward the crying sound. I take 3 steps, and a wall appears in front of me, and I smack into this wall head first. Boom, I hit my head. So in a matter of seconds, I'm up, take 3 steps, hit my head, collapse and moan and fall back into bed. And Megan says, I'll take care of it. I was in such pain. Peter was in a deep sleep. When Peter came to himself, verse 11, this is what he said. Now I am sure that the Lord has sent his angel and rescued me from the hand of Herod and from all that the Jewish people were expecting. Now I know the hand of the Lord. What's happened? How can these events be explained? One way, the hand of God himself has rescued me. The hand of God is acting on my behalf, working for my deliverance. And so immediately then, he goes to the house of Mary, verse 12, where we're told many were gathered together and praying. Peter's life is on the line. What else are they going to do? They spend the night in prayer. The rest of Jerusalem sleeping. The Christians are praying. These early Christians are always gathering together for prayer, praying together. What happens next now here in the story has become a key part of the story as it's been told these 2,000 years since it has happened, and the humor continues. Luke knows he's writing with humor when he's talking about Peter being half asleep during all of this, and the humor continues into this next section. As the Christians are there praying for Peter, there's a knock at the door that interrupts the prayer meeting. a girl named Rhoda hears Peter's voice, and she's so overjoyed that she forgets to open the door, let him in. She doesn't do that. She goes back to them while the knocking continues. Someone said from a narrative standpoint, Rhoda is the archetypal airhead in the story here. And there's a sense where that's true in terms of how she handles the situation. This then leads to this discussion where if I'm her, I just go back, open the door, and say, here he is. If they break open this discussion of, you're out of your mind, you're crazy, are you sure that Rhoda is sane? You know, did you have a good night's sleep? They start talking about all of these things, and then they go into, well, maybe it's his angel. Yeah, it's probably, Peter's angel. I don't know. And they're talking about all these things. Meanwhile, Peter's outside. We're told he keeps on knocking. Peter's just there knocking while they're trying to sort out all these things. I try to imagine, what this is like for Peter. He's probably out there knocking, thinking, this is ridiculous. My chains fell off, an angel appeared to me. I was led past the guards of Herod's maximum security prison. The gate to the city just opens on its own accord, and here I am knocking outside of my friend's house, and I can't get in. Since when is escaping from prison easier than getting into a prayer meeting that my friends are having? But that's where he finds himself. They open the door, and then they are amazed in that moment. And you can just imagine all the excitement, all the energy that would fill that room, all the hugging, all the excitement, all the noise, all of the questions that they would have. And this is how Peter responds, motioning to them with his hand to be silent. He described to them how the Lord had brought him out of the prison. The Lord had rescued him. The Lord had brought him out. And from this story, we see clearly that our God is a God of rescue. God is a God of rescue. Verse 11, now I am sure that the Lord has rescued me. Verse 17, the Lord had brought him out of the prison. Our God always has been a rescuing God. A God who sees people in their plight, who sees people in their danger, who sees people in their sin, who sees people in their suffering, and he moves toward them because this is his nature. He rescues. He's powerful to save. In fact, the idea of being rescued at night, the theme of this rescue, the divine rescue, the theme of being rescued at night reminds us of the original Passover in the book of Exodus. The language, the imagery that's used here, all of it intentionally parallels the night that the Israelites left Egypt. So that the wording of being brought out, where it's described as Peter being brought out of prison, the command to get up quickly, the specific directions about getting dressed, all of that. The iron gate opening, that imagery as Peter walks through with the angel, the idea of being rescued from the hand of the enemy, the language used to describe Herod being struck down, verse 23, that's struck down, same exact language used of Pharaoh in Exodus 12, verses 23 and 29. And we know that all this is taking place in Acts chapter 12 at the time of the Passover. So the irony here is extraordinary. Here are these Jews in Jerusalem who are recognizing the Passover, recognizing the God who rescues, the God who saves, and yet they missed it. They missed Christ as the one that every Old Testament rescue pointed to, and they missed that God was before their very eyes working another rescue of his servant. Every Old Testament rescue and every rescue in your life points to one great rescue that God has worked for us in Jesus Christ, through the death of Christ, through the resurrection of Christ. Your life is 1,000 rescues that all point like little signs to the great rescue that God has worked on behalf of his people. And all of the Old Testament that has with it rescue after rescue all looks forward and all points to the great God of rescue and what he has done in Jesus Christ. In fact, When Peter says in verse 11, amen, when he says in verse 11, the Lord has sent his angel and rescued me, that's the language of Nebuchadnezzar in Daniel 3. Luke would know he's using this. When God performed that great rescue, you just read the Old Testament, you'll see again and again, God's people being rescued. There it was Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego in the fire. They survive. God helps them. God delivers them. And what Nebuchadnezzar says in Daniel 3:28, God has sent his angel and delivered his servants. History is filled with stories of our delivering God. Filled with stories. And your life is as well. As we walk through the Christian life, we need to be able to see, even on this side of the cross, just as God rescued Peter, so he continues to be the rescuing God who works on our behalf. You know in your life how God has met you, how he has met you in the past in a way that builds your faith, in a way that calls your attention to his power, to his protection, to his ability to rescue and to work on behalf of his people. And as a result, the Christian life should be one of ever deepening experience and appreciation of God's rescue, of God's care, of God's heart for his people, of his deliverance. Where have you experienced God's help? Where have you experienced the divine rescue?